Hi, I'm Christina Liebert. I just graduated I guess 2 Saturdays now, with my early childhood education degree, so I'm certified pre-K through third grade. I took science and math for the fourth and fifth grade endorsement last summer, so now I'm taking the second two this summer in hopes of getting a job as well, and just having my first classroom, being able to teach more subjects. That opens it up a lot. I went to UC. My first year I went to Coastal Carolina University in South Carolina before I transferred home. I am currently, which you can't see outside, but I'm currently in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida. I've been here this week doing job interviews, and I'm attending a job fair tomorrow, so in hopes of maybe deciding where I want to stay with my life, but I'm not sure. Let's see. So I just graduated, but this entire past year I was in a second grade classroom at Boyd E. Smith in Milford, and I absolutely adored it. Everyone asks me in my interviews if I know where I want to teach or specifically what grade I would prefer, and I honestly don't know. I don't think that anyone really can know until you experience everything, but my time in the second grade, I adored them. I learned so much from them, probably learned more from them than they learned from me. About me, if I had a superpower, it would be probably to fly, because then I could go anywhere whenever I wanted. Which, not that I don't spend enough money buying flights to places all over the world, but I would definitely, that's probably one of my biggest things that I do is I travel. So last summer, I studied abroad in Ireland and Italy and traveled through, I think it was a total of 10 European countries. And the summer before that, I was in Australia and Fiji. So pretty much I will go anywhere, anytime. I don't think there's a single place you could offer me to go that I wouldn't want to go. It's kind of my passion, I would say. What do I know about social studies? If I was to define it, it's learning about your world. It's learning about your community and history and how everything has come to be. I think there's more encompassed in social studies than people give it credit for, especially just because I know while I was just in the second grade, social studies was never a subject that we really focused on, that we did a lot of learning on. So for my students to have that, I think was very important. Oh, sorry, I got really dark. How do I make myself brighter? Sorry. What I like about it, just that it gives you so much knowledge. I mean, you can learn about your history, your own personal history, the history of the United States, the history of every country. Going back to Pangea, there's so much there. Economics, how everything works, why gas prices all of a sudden jump. The government and how a lot of people see it as very messed up. There's so much that goes into it. Geography, I think that's kind of more about like the countries and just the different land and areas that there are. I think the challenges with it are there is so much, and that's a lot of information. And for someone at such a young age to take in and really understand and appreciate, I think is a lot. I was in fifth grade when 9/11 happened. I lived something that is in history books now, and at the time, I didn't have any idea what it was, what the impact would be. So I think for students to truly understand the impact of everything that's happened in their lives, and that these things that we read about in books they really did happen. I think that that's a lot. The purpose, I mean, I think that there should be purpose in everything that you do teach. But the purpose is learning from past mistakes or successes and seeing what's worked and what hasn't, and being able to make educated decisions and choices throughout the rest of your adult life. A lot of that, I think, really comes from having a good understanding of social studies. I definitely think it should be taught. I can't imagine if I had never had social studies growing up. Some of my social studies teachers were my favorite teachers. They had to make it relatable, and they did a really great job at that. So I think that definitely had an impact on why I have an interest in it, why I understand so much about it, and I'm so interested. I love knowing things, and you can't fight with history. You can't. They're facts. It really did happen. It's not literature that you can take one way or another, or a science experiment that you can try and change. You can't change history. You can only kind of make your own new history. Let's see. So going on to the articles. The Parker article, I read for my early childhood social studies class that I took over a year ago now. But I really did like it, because even at the time when I read it, he talks about the main, so there's culture, time, continuity and change, people, places, and environments, individual development and identity, individuals with groups and institutions, power, production, distribution, consumption, science, technology, and society, global connections, and then the civic ideals and practice. So what I took out of it is, those are really the breakdowns of social studies. He talked about a lot about the people that we can become learning all of this. I was in a kindergarten placement at the time when I read the article, and we had to make a lesson out of it by choosing one of the subjects. So I did people, places, and environments. So I went around the immediate community of the elementary school that I was at, and took pictures of each of the places, and even around the school, certain things that were in the school that had an impact on their immediate environment. And we put them all over a big board, and the students were supposed to try to identify them, and we talked about the importance of each of them. And they really liked that, and they were very engaged because it was in their community. They could walk home from school and see that. They could be driving down the street in the car with their mom, and they saw those things really right there. So it had a big connection to that. Let's see. My favorite NCSS theme is it's the culture one. I am such a travel junkie. You could send me somewhere for a week not knowing anyone, and it would make me 10,000 times happier than being in a crowded room with a bunch of people that I already know. I love learning about new places and cultures and their traditions and how they honor all of these things. It's fantastic. I would check into one of my hostels and leave my bags there, and sometimes I would take a map, sometimes I wouldn't, and just wander. I think you learn so much by actually experiencing something versus reading about it in the text. There's so much more. I'm sure there's much more to the United States or any smaller culture in here that most people overseas have no idea about, just because they're not coming and experiencing it. I do think that the state standards line up with the NCSS. I've used them a lot in my classroom. Mainly just, we did a lot on, wow, I'm blanking. American symbols, so that, I mean, they directly related. But culture is talked about in the standards in grades 1 to 4 and 6. I find it interesting that it's not a big topic in 3rd grade, but I think in 3rd grade they focus so much more on testing anyway that there's not a social studies drive. But the more that I look into it, I mean, I think you can blend social studies into so much with each of their standards. I mean, they're very broad. At the same time, they're very open to interpretations and taking it any which way you possibly could. The 2 books that I had read that I would say support the mainstream. The first one is, it's ironic that I was in 3rd grade and we had a paraprofessional, and she would read us the books, and at the end of the year she gave us like the next one in the series, but they were the Little House on the Prairie books. And in the last few weeks that I was at my placement in the 2nd grade, we actually were learning about child pioneers. So they were reading nonfiction texts about these child pioneers, and Laura Ingalls Wilder was one, and just having the background knowledge on it and seeing that I was able to really connect with the students about it. But I think it really shows how they were living. That was the American dream back then. They were pioneers. They were moving across the country in hopes of finding better open land. That was just such an American dream back then. And I think all of her books were absolutely fantastic and really get students interested in it because it's coming from a child's point of view. And then the other one I think is a very popular one just because they made the movie as well. But Great Gatsby, I mean, it's all about getting rich and everything's so great. I think that's the American dream to everyone now. All you have to do is have money and you'll be happy and successful, but it turns out that it's not how it works at all. But I thought those were 2 really good books that they're not dated yet. I mean, they're still very relevant. Everyone's interested in what life was like in the 20s or what it was like when the United States was just being formed. The 2 that I said that challenged mainstream, the first one was Catch-22. It goes against just, instead of everything being handed to you and everything being so simple, I mean, there's a lot of scheming that goes on into just making it through life. Everyone wants to say it's a walk in a park or, oh, you have things so easily. Well, people do a lot of scheming, and I thought that book really showed that I liked that a lot. And then the second one was one that I actually just we read to my students during this year. It's called The Lemonade Club. And it's about a little girl. She's in the classroom and she starts losing a lot of weight. She becomes very sick. She ends up having leukemia. And all of the students get involved in, just her life and all the changes she made. She begins to lose all of her hair, and she comes back to school, and all the students in the class have shaved their heads for her. And then at the end, you find out that her teacher actually develops leukemia as well, and just the relationships that they build and how it has such an impact on her recovery. But that's not a mainstream idea. No one wants to talk about cancer in a not negative light. Not that it was in a positive light, but just that you can talk about having a disease, and millions of people do. I think that students need to be aware that these things really can happen. Other than that, I think I covered everything. I hope so. But I'm going to probably go back outside and go lay in the pool because it's still really nice out. But it was great talking to my computer. So I will see you soon. Thanks.